Hello and welcome to another edition of Fruit Dangers Untold, the chapter-by-chapter breakdown of the fantasy classic that is Labyrinth. I'm your host always, Elwood Jones, and joining me, of course, is our resident Labyrinth Uber fan, Miss Emily Slade.
Hello!
Tonight we are on chapter 16, The Door Knockers.
Yes.
Which was a chapter that I thought was going to be really short, and then it turned out to be quite involved.
Yeah, I literally had to like we literally just logged on. And I literally was like, wait, what? It doesn't end there. And I had to go back to Netflix and watch the rest of the chapter and then come back to Skype. So here we are, both fully caught up on the full chapter that is The Door Knockers. Finally. Hooray. What a great chapter. I was super pumped because I thought it was just going to be the minimal conversation with the Door Knockers, as I assume you did too. And yet here we are with all the juicy... some of the most iconic moments of Labyrinth, dare we say. It's no...
Oh, yeah.
It's no, cupboard turn into exit door. You know, it's no literal, majestic, magic masterpiece. But, it's up there. It's up there.
Definitely. Well, let's break this down. Obviously, last time we gained a new member to our party in the form of Ludo, the walking carpet.
Yep.
And from the end of that chapter, we basically saw Sarah going, oh, what's that? And then this chapter sees us introduced to what she was actually looking at, which was the door knockers. And the door knockers for myself are very much like the false warnings. They're these two guys who are door knockers, and essentially they only have the one job in life, and that's to, open or close doors, I assume. And they just seem to have obviously had no one to talk to in quite a while, although they've already got their stick pretty much down.
It's just another example of just the pure imagination and inventiveness, and this idea that these people were just throwing ideas at the wall of things that they'd clearly just come across in real life and then just had a little bit of a daydream about and then turned into characters. So we've got two door knockers here, both sort of gargoyle faces. One, the ring, so the door knock, as it were, the ring that you knock with, is in his ears, and the other one, it's in his mouth. And that's sort of the gag. So one can't hear and one can't speak properly. And it's so simple and seemingly obvious, but it's so clever and fun that someone has clearly seen all of this. You go anywhere in England that's vaguely old and you see this sort of architecture around and you don't really think much of it, but much like the gargoyles on Notre Dame and how they come to life in I was going to say Notre Dame de Paris. No, in Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is not at all like Notre Dame de Paris by Victor Hugo, which I have not read, but I know a lot about. It's just a really fun example of people looking at sort of everyday, to a sense, things and just making them magical. Just magical again. It's just magic. It's just so clever.
It definitely is, and I think it's the sort of magic that runs through the labyrinth which makes it so enduring. And it's a very simple joke as well. It's the one who's got the ring for his ears can't hear because, so he's deaf. But at the same time, he refuses to accept the fact he's deaf and blames the other guy because he's got a ring in his mouth that he's not talking correctly. So he's there just going, mumble, mumble, mumble. And yet the guy with the ring in his mouth, he's really kind of chatty, which is really kind of bizarre looking at this now. He's sort of got his whole little line down for how the doors work and where they go. And of course, nobody provides any useful information because this is the whole purpose of the Labyrinth, is just to constantly mess with people. And where do you think these doors actually go? I mean, do you think one goes straight to the Goblin Castle and the other obviously leads us into the Fairies, or?
No, I think they both go to completely rando places. I think there was that one opportunity for a straight ass direct path to the Goblin Castle, and everywhere else is just fuck knows. It's up to you to find out. I don't think it's ever going to be that easy again. I think she missed her one opportunity to have the shortcut, but I think they're great. I think they're so fun, and they're such good puppets to the point where they almost look CGI, but like not bad CGI. They look good CGI, and the reason they look good CGI is because they're not CGI, they're puppets, but they don't look like puppets. They have this brilliant tone and this brilliant look on camera that's like brassy and real, but they're so expressive at the same time, and their voices are so good, and they're like clunk. She removes the ring from the one with that has it in his mouth, and again, that's just such a simple idea, but it's so nice. It's like, oh, we'll just take that out for a second. And he's like, oh, wow, I can fight, like, oh, that was really hurting. Like at the end of Toy Story 2, where Barbie has that moment where she's like, are they gone? Oh my gosh, I've got to stop smiling. My cheeks hurt so much. Ow. Because Barbie has this perpetual smile, and it was just something that everybody knows that no one's ever sort of addressed before, and therefore it's so funny and cute and nice. And it's that. It's like, oh my God, what if you took the ring out of the door knocker to give it a break? And then Sarah showing her, like, you know, not mean, that's too much of a loaded word, but just like, She needs to get to the fucking labyrinth, yeah. Like, she needs to rescue her fucking brother. Like, the stakes are pretty high here. She's gonna lose her stepbrother. That's pretty high. So she's gonna, like, cut off the air supply to this door knocker to get the ring back in its mouth. So she sees that it's breathing through its nose because it doesn't want the ring back in its mouth, and she holds it and gets the ring back in. Blah, 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 blah. It's just great. It's just a really fun little moment. What happens afterwards was always confusing to me, because so they have this conversation. She chooses the door knocker that she's been having a conversation with. She puts the ring back in his mouth, and she knocks on the door, because knock and the door will open. The door opens. She walks through into another glitter fested, we're back into a sort of a foresty vibe, and Ludo follows her and has this expression on his face that I think is meant to be fear, but comes across, and this isn't me having a go at the puppetry, but when I was watching it for years, I was like, that is such a sus look. He looks at Sarah like he's about to eat her. Like, he's just suddenly changed sides, and he's like, I'm a fucking killer. Like, it's so crazy to me that every time I see the facial expression that Ludo pulls as they go through that door, I'm like, oh God, like, Sarah's in danger now. And she's not. And, like, no one makes reference to that look ever again. But it was just my interpretation. I don't know if you ever interpreted that look in the same way, or whether you were just like, oh, Ludo's afraid, and that's what's going on there.
I took it as more cautious than hungry, which worries me because you're the actor amongst us.
Yeah, no, I just always interpret it as like, I don't know, like Ludo. You know, like, I was going to use Frozen as an example, but it actually does the opposite in Frozen. So, which I'm going to go on a mini rant about while I'm here anyway. So there's a moment in Frozen which is such bullshit, and this is not me coming for Frozen, but this part of Frozen is bullshit. So Anna meets Hans for the first time. They bump into each other, they have a conversation. Anna gets up and leaves, and Hans, in theory, is the only person left on camera. So everything he does now is entirely for the audience's purpose, because no one can see him. Usually in a movie, this would be the time when the villain would make some sort of suspicious look, much like I think Ludo does here, where Hans would look after Anna with a sort of like, perhaps it is you I shall seduce and make Queen of Arendelle, so all of my evil plans come to fruition. Ha 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 ha. And the audience would have some sort of foreshadowing or dramatic irony, and they would know that, hey, maybe that's the bad guy. I don't know, let's see where this goes. But Frozen lies to its audience. It doesn't, like, it full on manipulates and lies its audience, because Hans looks after Anna in a very loving and cutesy way that you're like, oh my God, potential love interest. And that is not fair. I know it's a children's movie for children, but it is not fair. You do not lie to your audience, because that's not clever. It's not a twist if you've straight up fucking denied facts. Like, if you've fucking lied. Like, if you've made something with absolutely no fucking clue whatsoever be one thing, and then you just 180 it. Like, that's not screenwriting. That's just lying to your audience, and I fucking hate it. And they do it in Frozen, and unfortunately Frozen was so fucking popular because it's a feminist modern classic that now they all do that, and all the Disney villains are like fake out fucking bullshit villains, and there's the R.I.P. the Disney villain. Anyway, I thought Ludo was going to turn into a Disney villain in this moment, but he does not, so that is okay.
Yeah, I mean, he also pretends to be a door knocker before that as well, so we get a real sort of sense of his mindset. I mean, he seems genuinely curious as to the door knockers. It's almost, you would expect him to have like some familiarity with this world, but he seems generally confused.
I genuinely think he's a tourist. I think he's a tourist. I think he's like wandered it. He's like E.T., but like this isn't E.T., this is Labyrinth. But if it was E.T., it would be called Ludo. And like there's a whole other movie happening that other audiences are watching where it starts when Sarah comes across Ludo, and that's like the beginning of E.T. And then the whole story is like E.T. but with Ludo instead of E.T. But we're watching Labyrinth, so Ludo's just a really bizarre character where it's like he does know how. Well, no, he doesn't. He can just call rocks. No. So wherever he's from, that's just what the vibe is, and he just brings it here, and luckily it works. So he must be from nearby, because I can't imagine if he came down to Earth. That's the point. Where is the Labyrinth in relation to Earth?
It's on its own plane. It doesn't have, it's not like a planet or anything like that. It's just its own fantastical realm that it exists within. Think Flight of Dragons, you know, the magical realm? That's hidden from so it's plain like view.
Between Wonderland and Oz, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's because in Flight of Dragons, they obviously create the magical realm that exists in the modern day, but it's hidden. It's hidden that it's just there to inspire. And Jarrod's realm is very much the same. It's like on an unseen plane is the way I always sort of viewed it. I never viewed it as they go to... Yeah, as I say, it probably is like Wonderland. It's just something that's always there. It's just we don't ever see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could, as I said, it could just all be this place that Jarrod has sort of like conjured up. Because not to obviously skip ahead, because when Sarah beats him, the whole world falls apart.
Wow, spoilers. Oh my god.
Yeah. So you got that to look forward to coming up, guys.
So Ludo looks super sus, and then he does like the dumbest. And I'm not coming for this movie because I wouldn't know how to get rid of an enormous puppet that's probably manned by like 9 people. Well, so they just dump him down a trapdoor like he's a panto villain, and that's fine.
Just disappears. And it's never explained where he goes.
He very much just falls through a trapdoor. Like, it's very clunky, but it's fine.
That, though, because I look at it and I think that's such a smooth removal.
Is it smooth? It's smooth like Caraboss would go, 100 years you sleep, my dear. Until then, time will stop, I fear. And then she like goes down very obviously through a trapdoor, and they try and have a puff of smoke to disguise it. Like, that's what happens to Ludo. Like, that's what happens. He just goes, huh, and then like trapdoor goes ka-clunk, and he goes, whoosh, and then the like trap comes across again, and everyone goes, well, he went under the soundstage. That's where he went. Like, it's not subtle, but he is enormous, and that's fine.
And when you first watch this, you assume, oh, he's gone. This character that we've just grown quite attached to has just suddenly gone.
I can't remember what I thought when I first watched it. Possibly because B, I literally couldn't give less of a shit about Ludo, and I kind of still can't. Like, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last episode. I don't care about Ludo, like, at all. Like, he comes in very late into the movie. We're like an hour in, and he doesn't speak. He is a surprising... And this is the thing, when you think of who's to come, Now, to be fair, my initial opinions on that person was also negative. I don't even like Hoggle. I feel like Sarah doesn't need sidekicks.
My gosh.
I don't know.
Bombshells being dropped all over the place tonight.
I never cared. I never cared about Ludo. So he went through the trap door, and I was like, oh well. And then we spoiler alert, we do catch up with him later, and I was like, oh, it's you again.
So
Hi,
can we just put this on pause a minute? So you're saying that when watching the Labyrinth, the only person you care about is Sarah?
Right. So do we recall Emily's introduction to the Labyrinth? How Emily feels about the Labyrinth?
I remember.
Emily's
yes, I
whole
remember
vibe
that.
about the Labyrinth. Why would Emily care about a support group when she identifies solely with the lone teenager that is doing the quest?
Because the lone teenagers draw strength from the group that she surrounds herself with.
This is what she missed and did not take on board.
It's like, I did it
on board.
Oh, me.
Date someone 20 years older than you who is toxic. That's a good thing. That is what she took from this movie. So then the best thing happens. So Ludo disappears. That's pretty good.
Shocking.
And then I thought the chapter ended, but it didn't. Because we cut back to fucking Hoggle, who is walking through the face of David Bowie in The Rock, the most obvious one that everyone drinks for because it's so obvious. And yay, we get Jarrod. We get some Jarrod. We briefly had some Jarrod. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had Jarrod in his throne room where he's with the baby, and we also get an insight into the general mindset of Jarrod, which is so self-absorbed. He wants to name the child Jarrod as well.
Well, he's got his eyes, which he doesn't because the baby has two bright blue eyes, not the sexy David Bowie eyes. But
and the fact he's a delightful little chap, isn't he?
It's an interesting little scene. It sort of serves no real purpose in the sense that, other than it telling us a little bit more about Jarrod's personality. But even then, it's like we kind of knew he was a dick because he kidnapped a baby and threatened a teenager with it becoming a goblin if she doesn't do this arbitrary task in a time limit. But yeah, it's fun to see him in his castle. He's getting his shoe shined by the goblins. And he's just playing around with Toby. And he seems like he'd be a really great dad. I don't know. I love him. But it's really bad. And it's interesting. It's a tiny little scene. But I assume it was also meant to establish the fact that he's in the castle, quite settled. So then it's quite unsettling to suddenly have him appear in front of Hoggle in 2 seconds.
I think it's more to do with the fact that we get to see the clock, so it's establishing time that's passed when Sarah's in the labyrinth. Because obviously this film's not shot in real time, because otherwise we'd be here for God knows how many hours waiting for Sarah to just stagger around a labyrinth. I mean, those first few hours would have been excruciating of her wandering around the gardens, being constantly turned around. It'd be a very different podcast. It'd be like, just get your shit together. But yeah, it's obviously there to establish time. We get to see a bit of the goblins, as you said, with the bit of the boot shine there, and one of them's got the bowl and a cup, the classic Mexican toy, also a favourite of the fantasy realm as well.
Yeah, they love it because it's kind of timeless. It's like reminiscent of both like the war and the Victorian era and like the modern day when something bad is up, like creepy Victorian ghost children. Like, it's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about losing the bowl because it's attached to the cup.
Classic.
It's and cleanup's as easy as catching a ball in a cup.
Iconic.
So it's an excuse to work in that Family Guy clip there. So yeah.
Yeah. So Jarrod appears looking fucking fantastic in his absolute staple outfit of the like big collar and the tight grey trousers and the like enormous penis on display. Like, it's just there, and like I feel like I don't know if we've addressed it yet in this podcast. But
the film certainly addresses it because we get to a shot that is just crotch height, so we can look at Hoggle, and it's like, all you can see in the frame is Bowie's crotch.
Yeah, And
also we get
yes.
I was just gonna say that we get another Bowie in the wall, and it's Bowie standing by a carving of his own face.
Yeah, classic. That's how I like my Bowie. Bowie on Bowie. So he's looking dapper and very iconic, and the conversation is really interesting from both characters' perspectives. Watching it this time round, quickly before we started recording, I took umbrage to the amount of times that Hoggle refers to Sarah as the little lady. Like, it really, deeply upset me this time round. I've never really noticed it before and always passed it off as a vague character trait if I've even acknowledged it before now. But today, I'm here to be about that.
Okay. I mean, for myself, I saw it as the fact that Jarrod is obviously Hoggle's boss. And he's probably aware that, Jarrod and Sarah got some complicated thing going on. And the last thing you want to do is to be assaulting your boss's girl, no matter how weird their relationship is. So his way of being respectful is to refer to as being the little lady rather than...
Do we use the word respectful when we talk about the phrase little lady? Young woman easily could have worked and have been fine. I actually like the phrase young woman. I think it's incredibly respectful and decent. I think little lady is incredibly patronizing and disgusting.
Okay.
So...
That's fine.
Yeah. Do you have, so as a character choice, do you think...
I think, as I said, I just thought it was just him being, respectful. There's obviously reference to the fact that Sarah has Hoggle under the thumb because he remarks that Jarrod remarks the fact that she's got his jewels.
And again, for the first time in my life, I interpreted jewels as bollocks. Because, and this has never, ever, ever occurred to me in watching this movie countless times before now. But Jarrod, gasps and clutches Hoggle close to him and goes, Hoggle, I've just realised your precious jewels are missing. And in that moment, for the first time ever in my life, 5 minutes ago, I went, oh my God. Are we making some sort of subtextual comment about how he's been whipped? How his balls are in that palm of Sarah? He's been cuckolded by this little lady? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're interpreting here? Or am I just drunk? I don't know. Maybe. But for the first time ever, that's what I saw in that line. Whereas every single time before, again, to reference it for the second time this episode, in Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame, when you're watching it as a child and Frollo is clutching Esmeralda from behind and he's like, I was just imagining a rope around that pretty neck of yours, and she goes, I know what you were imagining. And as a child you're like, yeah, a rope around that neck of you, he wants you to die, he wants to kill you. And then when you grow up you're like, oh, he wants to have sex with you. Oh, I get it now. Oh my God, I was dumb. Wait, why was that in a kid's movie? It doesn't matter, I didn't get it anyway, so I'm fine. And again, for the first time here, I was like, oh, is there some hidden testicle reference here that I never got before? Because all of my life I've been yeah, his jewelry's gone, and that's important. That was important to the plot and their character progression and all of these things. But only on this reading, where I truly separated myself from everything, was I able to see a potential ball joke there.
It's the problem when you rewatch stuff over and over again. You apply different context to things. You rework things in your own mind, and certainly as you get older, and you often twist things around in your head. But yeah, I mean, they tried to play it off as sort of oh, where did those go? I've always put those down somewhere. to like obviously to this, so they can go, no, we didn't make a balls joke.
And this is the thing, like, did they make a balls joke?
I don't think
I don't think they did, but I can actually now see, because all of a sudden, you know, there's the thing with Labyrinth, and I think why it has such an endearing longevity and fan base is because I think secretly everybody knows that it's really fucking sexy, and like it can be completely watched innocently and purely with no sex reference at all, or you can watch it and be like, this is entirely filthy. And I think that's so ingenious that something is able to have that power of both interpretations. And this time around, for whatever reason, I'm really leaning in on the adult themes. And he talks about his precious jewels, and then he gives him a fucking peach, which again is so interesting. Like, firstly, excellent choice from veering away from the classic interpretation of the fruit of the Garden of Eden, because in the Bible it's referred to as a fruit. I don't know who made it an apple, but in the Bible it's a fruit. But like, they always make it an apple. And
no
of
idea.
course,
As I said,
Snow White obviously has an apple, and it's just become intrinsically tied as like this sort of poison power fruit, where it's like the staple of literature or whatever. But here they have a peach. They have a peach, and I love that they have a peach, because I always took that as like, it's the Labyrinth, they're doing something different. But also, obviously, with the rise of emojis, we know that a peach 100% means like sex.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, obviously, when we look at the peach, it's a more exotic fruit than an apple.
I wouldn't call a peach exotic, but I do know what you're saying.
In a visual format, I mean, like I said, if
true.
someone throws you a peach because of the colour and the what it looks like visually, it seems more exotic than if you throw someone like a plum. I mean, if we look at the other fruit options that we have available that can be thrown, because obviously you're saying, no, we're not going to do the stereotypical route of just doing apples. What else can you throw? I mean, yeah, you're sort of like, oh, a plum, a banana, since we're on a sexual thing, a watermelon?
Yeah.
Give it. It's sort of like, I'm so hungry. It's like, oh, lucky me, I've got this huge watermelon. Chow down. So yeah, I think the peach is like the best option, and as I said, I've always thought it's been like, oh, you know, this is luxurious fruit. I mean, obviously, if you live in Emily world, then it's not a luxurious fruit at all. It's, you know, it's just a peach.
What?
I know it's just you were dissing the peach. You're saying it's not exotic.
No, it's not exotic in the sense that like it. You know, it's like a pomegranate, or like a.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Or like a fruit. It feels quite. I feel like we can grow peaches in the climate here in the UK, but there are other fruits that we cannot grow in the climate of the UK, and therefore that makes them more exotic, luxurious, perhaps. Yes, I would argue a peach is luxurious more so than an apple, because you can't buy them in bulk or cheaply like you can apples, or as often. But exotic just means in the sense of like they're quite easy to come by. Like most children in the UK probably would be able to recognize a peach. Whether they've had one or not is a completely different argument, but they would be able to recognize one more so than like perhaps a papaya, or even like a mango. Like, this is how ignorant I am. I can't even give you an exotic fruit. But, you know, the type of fruit that comes from like actual countries where the climate is different and they feast on different food stuff. That was my.
It is the problem. Is like, if anything more, you know, more exotic, like a star fruit or a pomegranate and stuff, the insides don't look particularly appealing. So as I said, this is the great thing about the peach. It looks good throughout. So the only problem is it has that stupid stone that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Which
Fucking
again
hate
can
them.
probably be interpreted thematically somehow, but I can't bother to go into it. But it's fun. So he gives her a peach, and he's like, give her this. And Hoggle's like, it's not going to hurt her, is it? And Jarrod's like, do you know who I am? Obviously, this is like a date rape peach. Like, obviously it is. And Hoggle's like, oh, I'm a shit friend. All right, I'll do it. Oh, fucking Hoggle.
Yeah, but this is also the first time Jarrod is finding someone rivaling his affections for Sarah. Before this point, he's been like fully in control.
Also, like, it's not really a rival. Like, he does not see Hoggle as a rival.
I'm not saying it's a rival. The fact is, it's someone else being the fact that she's got an ally or a friend. It's sort of like, you know, if you're the possessive sort in your relationship with someone and they say, oh, I've made friends with this girl or boy or plant or rock, whatever you find yourself in rivalry terms with, and then your mind is constantly like, I must destroy this person. How dare they show interest in the object of my affections? And that's the way I read that particular scene, and hence why he threatens from head first into the bog of eternal stench. He belittles him and says that, you know, I'll make you the prince of stench, and does all his usual dramatic flares to ensure that he remains on the higher ground at the end of this conversation. So,
yeah, I guess, yeah, I've never actually interpreted that way. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. It's coming from a place of jealousy. I guess I've always just assumed that Jarrod isn't capable of jealousy. Jarrod isn't capable of jealousy because he's so overwhelmed with his own power that, like, he could probably click his fingers and Thanos Hoggle out of fucking existence. Do you know what I mean? If he wanted to, which says to me that he doesn't ever see Hoggle as a real threat because he's just like a goblin, and Jarrod is like a god. Like, he can move time and bring creatures from different realms here and apparate and pull things out of thin air. Like, he's a fucking god in this realm, and Hoggle is a dwarf who is like lumpy. So he's like, oh yeah, I'll turn you into the Prince of Stench, but I will also just fucking kill you if I ever thought you were a threat, which I clearly don't because you are so low. You are so low.
You know what? Hoggle is basically the John McClane in this. Jarrod is Hans Gruber, and thinks he's got everything worked out, and then he just wheels in and becomes a fly in his ointment.
No, I don't think so. Having only seen Die Hard once, and I was drunk.
Jarrod was like, I've got this plan totally worked out. I'm a phenomenal power here.
I think
this is going to go according to plan. And like,
Sarah
Hoggle
is John
was like
McClane.
The wild card element.
Sarah is John McClane. Like, Sarah is John McClane.
Is she?
Like, yes, she is the one that causes the entire fucking world to collapse, which is the equivalent of him throwing himself off the tower. Like, if we're doing Die Hard, Sarah is John McClane, which makes Hoggle either Sarah's wife or, like, the boss that gets shot up halfway through. Spoilers for Die Hard, by the way, which would have pissed me off because I only saw it for the first time ever last year, and I'm 29. Yeah, no, Hoggle is not John McClane in this scenario. Sarah is. If we're even doing Die Hard, which doesn't really work. He's the bear. He's the big teddy bear sat in the taxi cab. He's the cop
he's
that,
he's the limo driver. This is what you're saying.
He has that fucking storyline where he's like, oh, I killed a kid and now I'm scared of using guns. And we're meant to be, like, elated that he's able to use guns again by the end of the movie. And, like, that's framed as, like, a good thing. And it's like, you killed a kid. Why are you still a policeman? Oh, my God. What the fuck, America? Yeah, Die Hard was great. It was a modern classic. I really enjoyed it, but I found that problematic. So Hoggle has a very iconic line in this scene where he says, I ain't lost my head. And it's just so iconic. It's very quotable. And everybody knows it. Good God. So I think that the way David Bowie delivers the line, because Hoggle then starts to struggle and he's like, I don't want to hurt her. And David Bowie's like, why? And he's like, oh, well, she said we were. And then Jarrod's like, what? Bosom companions? Friends. And the way he says friends is so fucking devastating. It is so funny to me now because it's like... It is like playing into this fucking misogynistic patriarchal bullshit of like, if a woman only wants to be friends with you, you've lost. And it's like, how fucking dare you? How dare you treat women this way? That you think that they're prizes to be won, and that like if they want to be friends with you, you've lost somehow. Like, it is disgusting behavior and it is so toxic. And this movie definitely plays into that. But I just love the way that he delivers the line friends, because it 100% encompasses all of that, which is completely bullshit and false and shit, and we should move away from it. But here we are in this movie, and it works so well within the narrative because it leads Hoggle to do what he does. It's just a brilliant line read, and I find it so devastating when he's like, friends. It's like, oh yeah, God forbid a woman wants to be friends with you. All she is vagina that is a prize to you for being so nice to her. Am I right, lads? I'm right. We're not right. It's toxic behavior, but it's excusable in this movie because I adore it.
See, I read it a completely different way than you did.
Hit me.
Obviously not as extreme as our earlier analogy, that's for sure. But no, the way I saw it is the fact that Jarrod sees Hoggle as the same as his goblin hordes. They're just things. They're not.
Sorry, Karen.
They don't have like lives or friends or anything like that. He sees them pretty much as being dirt. So it's sort of like, why the hell would this girl I'm so obsessed with, but I have a really weird way of showing it, be friends with you? Because you are just the handyman. You're the gardener. You're the fairy killer. You are not someone who she could ever be friends with. And I didn't see it as this sort of demeaning thing. So yeah, I just saw it as being like the fact that Hoggle has spent a great deal of time being like treated like dirt by Jarrod, and this is just the latest assault in him, keeping him down by saying, because people who are friends have self-worth, and he doesn't want Hoggle seeing himself have self-worth. He gives him purpose by giving him jobs, but he doesn't need him to have self-worth.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how it almost ties into what you were saying earlier about how the jealousy aspect comes in, where like, yeah, like, you're so beneath me, like, why would she like you? Again, it's completely toxic. But yeah, interesting. Okay, all right.
Because obviously Sarah's been built up as being the princess style character in this, so obviously she deserves a prince, which in this case would be Jarrod, and he doesn't want anyone coming anywhere near to his status. This is why he's constantly pushing people down, and luckily for him, I mean, his goblin hordes are so stupid they don't really mind, they just need direction. And Hoggle, obviously being a dwarf, has a little more go about him, so he needs to approach him in a different way, and that's in Jarrod's way of doing that, is by basically berating him every opportunity he has, and playing up on his fears by using his power, which Hoggle has some level of awe of, by saying, if you don't do this thing, then I'm going to make this thing happen to you, and it's going to be bad. So yeah.
Yeah. And then he has the best evil laugh ever.
And then, all the while this is going on, you got Sarah asking for Hoggle in the background. She's lost. And you think for a moment, and you look to the 3 crows on the branch, and you think, are they real?
Right? I did exactly the same thing. I was like, wow, those birds are doing a really good job of like hanging out on that branch there this whole time.
And today I only realised that in Company of Wolves, they're not actually wolves, they're using the dogs. So,
wow,
the magic was lost on.
The animal magic of the movies has just been broken for you today.
Then again, I mean, after Raw, I think we all realised that working with dangerous animals is not the best thing to really do. So to have dogs... But again, I mean, Neil Jordan in that movie, I mean, he's creating surreal fantasy magic on the level of Labyrinth with just 9 trees, a soundstage, and a bunch of dogs. So you've got to give him credit.
Yeah, very true. I fucking love Company of Wolves.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's a fucking fairy tale movie. Like, obviously, I've seen it.
I just watched it today, and
what, for the first time?
Like, yeah, for the first time.
Oh my god, it's so good. Like it's every, like, obviously I've seen it. It's everything up my street. Like, come on.
As I said, I don't know if you had, because obviously it leans to the horror thing. But then again, it has Angela Lansbury as Granny fighting a werewolf.
It's Angela Carter fairy tales in a movie. Like, obviously I've watched it.
And it's basically when you watch the legend, you're like, I want more legends, and everyone's like, well, there's Willow and there's Kroll.
Hot take, I haven't seen it in a while, but I watched it a lot as a teenager. I ain't got a lot of time for Willow. Big fan of the Val Kilmer and his then wife's relationship. Other than that, I don't have much time for Willow. It's very long. It's a long movie. It's a very long movie, and Mad Mardigan is not likable. Like, at all.
Oh. Okay.
Hot take. Don't at me. But, like, I will rewatch it soon. Maybe. It's so long, you guys.
Is it?
And the baby has such a shit wig. When everything else was like 1 hour 30, it was like 2 hour 15. And I was like, oh God, this is my entire life. I'm like 12.
But, yeah, Company of Wolves. It was like the
great.
Legend spin-off that I always wanted.
Oh my God, I love Legends so much.
Even though Terrence Stamp has probably the easiest acting job ever in that movie.
Yeah.
He just turns up in a car and goes, use it wisely, and then rolls off, and then it's like, you got paid for that?
Hell
I could
yeah.
be an actor.
No, you need to be an established actor first to get those walk-in roles. Those 1 hour long days pay roles.
Yeah. But any movie that casts the Shakespearean actor Brian Glover in its movie does no wrong by me.
Nice.
I love Brian Glover.
I have no idea who
R.A.P.
that is, but okay.
He plays the father of the boy in the village.
Nice.
He's the guy with the thick Yorkshire accent. But anyway, back to this film.
Yes.
Anything else you want to talk about? Because obviously we end with Sarah still not knowing where Hoggle is, still not knowing where Ludo is, and basically looking out into this new realm because we're into the woods now. And
into the woods. Into the woods.
She just like
into
looks
the woods
around
and out of the woods. And happily ever after. I wish. Sorry. That was some Stephen Sondheim. Felt relevant. Yes, she's in a fun, cool new part of the Labyrinth, and we're about to get a song that absolutely slaps. That a lot of people call a fat-lipped alligator moment, but I would heartily disagree because we've had arguably a lot of those. If you don't know what that is, look it up. But just because this one is musical, people try and pull it out as like more explicitly random than the like 9 things that have just happened to our protagonist in the last hour, which are equally big fat lipped alligator moments in themselves, because that's what the whole fucking point of the Labyrinth is, like just random shit happening. So this is not any different to that. It's just because it's a musical number, people are like, oh well, you know, the big fat lipped alligator moment was a musical number in itself, and therefore this is a musical number, and therefore it's more like that. But you know, hot take, I would say that it is not that, but we will probably discuss that more next episode.
We will.
So yeah. I do like this chapter. It's a fun chapter. It's imaginative, it's creative, it's sexy, it's good. I got a lot of deeper meaning. I still hate Hoggle. It's a great episode.
Cool. Well, on that happy note, we are going to say goodnight. If you haven't done already, please do hit the like and subscribe button wherever you happen to be listening to us. And, you know, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Come and say hi. Let us know your thoughts on Labyrinth. And we will be back next time where we celebrate the wonderful musical moment that is Chili Dam. But until then, thank you to my co-host Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for listening, and we will be back soon with another chapter. But until then, good night.